Hi, so part 17 of how to use a dictionary. And if you bear with me a few minutes on that one, I'm going to talk about something really interesting relating to grammar, glamour, and Icelandic. And you may wonder what's that all about, but actually you'll be really interested. So in the last few parts up until now, we looked at various things, pronunciation in a dictionary, how the words are laid out, and so on and so forth. But importantly, the different jobs or functions that words do. And what those jobs and functions are called is actually called the parts of speech. Now, the reason I didn't use the term parts of speech at the beginning is because parts of speech is a particular specific grammar word. And I just wanted to make it come across that we're looking at the functions of words. What do words do? Now, when you do hear the expression parts of speech, so when you hear this from now on, parts of speech refers specifically to the jobs that a word has in grammar. And here we have 9 parts of speech, although some will say it's only 8 parts of speech because the article, which we looked at already, is really a type of adjective. So quite often it's just all together under adjective, but I've laid them out completely. So we looked at the noun, right? The word that names something. The pronoun, a word that replaces a noun. The article, which in the English language is just a, an, and the, only 3 words. The adjective, a word that describes another noun. A verb, a word that describes a state of being or an action. An adverb, so that's a word that describes another verb or an adjective or another adverb. We looked at all that. So if you've missed that, you need to go back to the previous parts because I explain and cover everything. Then we have a preposition, which is a word that simply shows a relationship between 2 groups of words. We have the conjunction, a word that joins groups of words or more words together, and an interjection, a word that expresses strong feeling. So these are your parts of speech. And as we saw as well, we saw that a word, any word, right? A word being simply a group of letters, or in the case of the word or I, just one letter, which has a particular meaning. It can have one meaning or it can have more than one meaning, and it can have different jobs. So different function. So we looked at words like, let's have a look at just the word run. So run can be an action, is running, but a run could also be a noun. A chicken run, for example. Or if you say, I had a good run doing this, that would be a good time doing it, or just a run, go outside for a run. That would also be a noun. Let's say you have a bat, so that could be the animal. It could also be the actual wooden bat for playing a batting game, or it could be the action to bat a ball. And some words have a lot more than just 2 jobs. Some words we've looked at some words can be verb, adverb, preposition, conjunction. I mean, they can, some words can have 6 parts of speech. The word out, O-U-T, has 6 parts of speech. Obviously not the article, because there's only a and the. But off the top of my head, I can't remember which one it isn't, but it's most of them. So the idea is when you understand the parts of speech, it makes it a lot easier to look through in a dictionary. Now, parts of speech is one small aspect in the subject of grammar. Now, grammar includes pronunciation, includes many other things, but I've already done a post months ago on the original meaning of grammar. And I just want to tell you very quickly the simplicity of grammar, which is made very, very complicated in current textbooks. And for this, I'm using the same dictionary that I used on my original post. And this is actually an abridged version of that really massive dictionary that I use, the Samuel Johnson. This is a different edition. It's a duplicate. It's not an original copy. It's a reprint. And what I said at the time was super simple. It's simply grammar, the science of speaking correctly, the art which teaches the relations of words to each other. And that is truly the simplicity of grammar. It's an art. I mean, this is what they called it, an art. or the book that treats of these various relationships of words, like a grammar. Here's a grammar. But here we have the art which teaches the relations of words to each other, the science of speaking correctly. That's all grammar is. And it comes from the Greek grammatike, techne being the art. So the art of writing. Grammar in Greek, and I'm happy for Greek viewers to correct me, but grammar means letter. And it's one of the roots for writing. So the art of writing, the art of letters. But the reason I'm going to talk about Icelandic and glamour is because when I did the original post, somebody put a comment, would you please check if it is true that the word glamour has the same root as grammar? Now, in all my dictionaries at the back, I can tell you that there are various argumentations between dictionaries through the times about the root of grammar and glamour. And some dictionaries absolutely say that the word glamour is an alteration, a corruption, a Scottish corruption of the word grammar, referring to witchcraft and incantations and spells and occult learning, right? However, just for fun, and I've got something else to show you that I got from Reykjavik last November to answer that question. I know, I'm quite sad, aren't I? Anyway, this is the 1895 dictionary, Lloyd's. That's got really fabulous derivations. Now, various dictionaries disagree, but so some dictionaries will put glamour as same derivation as grammar, just as a corruption. But this one doesn't, and a few don't. So it says glamour, from Icelandic, glamour, a legendary ghost or spirit. And here's a definition which is amazing, and that it gives you a complete different view of what glamour magazines are, or the glamour of somebody. And I just love that definition. The influence of some charm on the eye, causing it to see things differently from what they really are. So when I read that, I think, it's a bit hard on my sex, but I do think about the ladies that put so much makeup on, because I don't wear makeup. I've never worn makeup really. So I don't know. That's the first thing that I think when I read that. And as I said, I'm not being mean there. It's just what I think as a woman. So, because one can, totally change their face and it gives a completely different appearance. So the influence of some charm on the eye, causing it to see things differently from what they really are, a magical deception of sight. Then we have another definition 2, witchcraft, magic, and definition 3, a kind of haze covering objects and causing them to appear differently from what they really are. And that is what glamour is. And according to that, it comes from the Icelandic. So what I did, I got asked that question back in summer last year when I started TikTok. And then I happened to have gone to Reykjavik last November for my 50th birthday. Now, I had gone there many, many years ago. And it never occurred to me until this last trip how, because 10 years ago, I'd gone with children. And this time round, I had another round in the fantastic museum in Reykjavik, the Icelandic Museum, or the Museum of Icelandic History. I can't remember the full title. And now, for those who've been to Iceland, Iceland is incredibly expensive. In fact, we had a shock because it's like the prices have gone so high. I think it cost me about 30 quid for like 20 tea bags or something like that. However, I went to a second-hand shop and I managed to get, for the same price as 20 odd or 30 tea bags, a beautiful set of Icelandic dictionaries. Not Icelandic English or English Icelandic, but actually Icelandic. And I thought, do you know what? I walked around and actually really paid attention to the language. And the museum was fabulous because the museum really gives the history of Iceland and of the language. And it's quite extraordinary that Icelandic, despite the various invasions and all sorts of things, they the language really remained. Their language was not altered by the Latin that came to the island and Christianity that came to the island, and they kept the language. And so many words in the English language do come from Scandinavia or Icelandic, Norse, Old Norse. And I was only really on this trip, really looking around and looking at things like a bakery. And it's written bakery. I mean, I don't know how it's pronounced. And suddenly all these words are popping out going, oh my God, it really does look like English. And you kind of forget that English really has so many Nordic words, so many Latin words, so many Greek words, so many French words. So it's really fascinating. Anyway, I go on a tangent. So Glamour. Let's have a look at Glamour. And so I thought I wanted to look at it. I know there's a few letters in the Icelandic alphabet. I don't know what they're called. We don't obviously have them. But the amazing thing is I went to look in a dictionary, which is why I bought it at the time. I haggled down to 30 quid. And Glamour, here you go. And you can see in the dictionary, it does indeed have Glamour as a capital letter. Where is it? Oh, it's here. There. And you see it's capitalized. So I had to get a little translation. And apparently it says here, Glamour is a well-known ghost figure in Icelandic culture. So it actually fits the derivation of the Lloyd's Encyclopedic Dictionary. And it's written the same, Glamour. And then in other definitions here, name of a giant, name of a ghost, name of a horse afflicted by spell. And the word above with a similar root, glamsini, I don't know what that is, I had got some translation there, and it was like illusions, same thing, words to do with illusions. So I thought, wow, they can argue, but here we go. So I thought I'd get the Icelandic dictionary and get the real source, and that's what it says on there. So I'm going to go with the fact that the word glamour is not related to grammar, and it comes from Icelandic. And like it says in here, and perhaps it is so, what some dictionaries are saying, that the Scots were into their, back then, a long time ago, into some sort of occult writings or, witchcraft, and grammar at the time would have meant perhaps learning, extended learning, writing, and that could have also gone that way. Who knows? Anyway, next post. I'm not finished with how to do a dictionary, how to use a dictionary. So we've done the first part. And having looked at the parts of speech and all these other little tidbits, the next set of posts on the subject are going to be with punctuation. So these are all the marks and symbols which are used in the dictionary, and all sorts of other little bits and bobs to tie up the whole subject of how to use a dictionary. There'll probably be the odd thing that we won't be able to cover just because not every dictionary is exactly the same, but hopefully that will cover just generically the main ways dictionaries are set up.